got to see one of the more anticipated horror movies of the year, one of the more anticipated sequels of the year. I'm talking about Smile 2. This is, of course, a film directed by Parker Finn, a man who directed the first Smile film. That was his directorial debut, a film that was based off a short film that he had won a bunch of awards for. And it's a film that kind of exceeded expectations. I remember when I first saw the trailer for Smile, it looked like another generic sort of Blumhouse horror film, where you get a lot of films from that company that aren't necessarily bad, but are films that kind of hold on to a concept, like Truth or Dare, or, you know, like Smiling Demons. They take these concepts that on paper are scary enough to draw a general audience, but the films themselves are never really anything deep or incredible or creative or anything really unique, in a sense. They're just kind of standard horror films. What sets Smile apart is that it was actually a pretty well-made movie, with some good, well-thought-out scares, an awesome concept, and a movie that didn't just rely on its gimmick, but told a pretty good story. It's not a film that really blew anybody away, but it ended up being more memorable than a lot of the horror movies we get. Now, Parker Finn is back with a sequel, Smile 2, which stars Naomi Scott, and takes this incredible concept of this smiling demon that latches onto people into kind of a larger scenario. This film takes place in Manhattan as we follow a celebrity, a superstar, essentially like a Taylor Swift type celebrity who is a recovering addict in this universe. She's super famous, super popular, but she has been through some shit and she is about to relaunch her career as a recovering addict. And she, of course, ends up being kind of taken over by this smile condition, by this smile demon who starts haunting her. Now, this film, it kind of blew my mind, because I expected this film to be pretty good. I remember when I saw the first trailer for it, I thought, wow, that is a perfect place to take a sequel, and this film looks bigger, better, and Parker Finn as a director is somebody who I'm very interested to see what he'll be able to do on a bigger scale. This film legitimately ended up being one of the best movies of the year, and I can't believe I'm saying that. Smile 2, one of the best movies of 2024. It is. This film blew me away. It is absolutely stunning and incredible and just masterful in every which sort of way, and I am still shocked that I am here telling you this in my review for Smile 2. I expected to like this movie. I didn't expect to love it. And I'm going to explain to you why in this review this film is so much better than most horror sequels and so much better than most horror movies, and why Parker Finn, in my opinion, is one of the most exciting filmmakers out there, and why Naomi Scott maybe gave the best performance of any actress this year. I mean, holy crap. So some stuff that works about this film. First things first, actually taking this film and expanding on the original is something that was really huge. This film is very different than the original. It's not the same sort of typical horror movie where you're following this psychiatrist and there's a haunted house scenario. This is a movie that is essentially a larger scale version of the last one. It's a film that takes place in the busiest city in the world, with a character who's one of the most famous people in the world. She can't help but be around others. So how do you center a very isolating horror concept in a world where there's so much going on with these characters? Well, Parker Finn finds a very unique way of doing it, of both doing scares in very public areas and spaces with a bunch of people that could be smiling at our main character, but also isolating ourselves in this character's mind. It is really brilliantly done. And one of the main reasons this movie works so much better than the first one and works more than most horror movies is because at the end of the day, this is a film that is a character study. This is a character-driven movie about this character Skye, played by Naomi Scott. This is the type of story and the type of script that even without the smile concept, even without the horror, you can make a movie work out of this. This film is about a recovering addict and her struggles with her grief and the trauma that has come from some of the stuff that had happened before this movie began. And Naomi Scott gives one of the best performances of the year. Now, obviously, she's not going to get any Oscar recognition because this is Smile 2, but my God, should she? She gives an incredibly powerful performance in a movie where the camera is always on her. She never fails to steal every single moment of that time that she has on screen, which is pretty much the whole thing. She is so powerful, so incredible. I cannot stress enough how good Naomi Scott is in this movie. You have to go and see it to believe it. With the exception of Adrian Brody in The Brutalist, this is probably my favorite performance of the entire year so far. She deserves all the praise in the world. She sells both the horror elements of this film, but just the kind of tragedy of some of the things that she's gone through and the stress and just everything. She is a powerhouse in this film. And the story that Skye goes on all the way up to the ending of the movie, it makes sense and it's powerful and it feels so thematically rich, and it's so much more than you would expect from a typical horror movie, especially called Smile. The actual horror elements here are done well as well. You know, there are some cheap jump scares throughout the film, which the first one also included. Some jump scares that are very clever and very well thought out. Others, not so much. But there's just a lot of psychological horror in here, more so than the first one. This one feels more like a psychological thriller, whereas the first one felt more of a typical horror movie. Now, yes, there are your typical horror scenes with the build-ups and then the big jump scares, but most of the movie tries to scare you in a psychological way where you just don't know if what you're watching is real. You don't know if what you're watching these characters go through is actually real, and that constant questioning and anxiety is really what makes this film a terror and what sticks with you after the viewing. And Parker Finn is so good at inducing anxiety, not just from the characters, but from the audience, and he does this through his filmmaking. And now, I'm about to gush about Parker Finn's filmmaking, because my god, is this guy not one of the best filmmakers working today, in my opinion. One of the best young filmmakers. This man is a bloody genius, and I will be seated for everything he does. There are so many unique and interesting things done with the camera in this movie. We're not even going to talk about the script and his writing, just the camera. The stuff he does with the camera, how it molds with the editing, how it molds with the direction and the blocking of the characters in the scene. Everything is so well thought out. Every beat of this movie felt like it was planned from the inception phase of this movie. It is so incredible to see a filmmaker that is so sure of what kind of film he wants to make, of the film he intends to make. This is one unbroken vision from an incredibly talented filmmaker, and I'm blown away. This film reminded me of Challengers earlier in the year, and I know what you're thinking, Challengers? Not in themes, not in story, but in the way it's shot. Where Challengers is this tennis movie where the director of that film was really able to do so many creative things with the camera and integrate it into the game of tennis and mold it with the characters that I was just constantly blown away at all the ideas that he had. This film was the same thing. The amount of different ways that he uses the camera in this film is insane. For example, the opening scene, the opening prologue, is essentially one long oneer. It's a one-shot sequence. Is it all one shot? No, but it's filmed to look like one shot of this guy going into this house with a gun, and a bunch of drama happens with the smile stuff and everything else. It is a brilliant sequence that reminded me of some of the best oneers we see in Hollywood, and that is just the opening. There's another brilliant sequence, a flashback that includes Naomi Scott's character in a flashback in a car, and the camera just keeps going back and forth, and just the way it's filmed, the anxiety is so incredible how he's able to build it in these scenes. One of the best scenes earlier in the movie that induce anxiety is a scene that nobody's even gonna remember. It's a scene where she's just talking to her mother and her manager, and just the way it's edited together and shot. It's two shots, a close-up on Naomi Scott, and then a wide of the rest of the room, and they cut back and forth, and you're expecting a jump scare just because you know what kind of movie you're watching, and one never comes. But just the brilliance of knowing how to edit together simple shots, simple framings, and just put it all together in a way that makes the audience think something horrifying is about to happen. It's how you make a horror film. That's how you do it. This guy knows how to make a damn movie, man. And it's so brilliant to see, and just everything else with this film. Every scene has some kind of interesting transition, just cool editing niche. There's just so much going on in this film from a technical level that makes me go, wow, I love filmmaking, and I'm so glad that Smile, a concept that could have been really goofy and gimmicky, ended up being made by a guy that is clearly at the top of this frickin' craft, of the filmmaking craft. This is a guy, Parker Finn, you have to all watch out for. When he's done making these Smile movies, he's gonna go on and make so many incredible things, because this guy is a genius, and he knows what the hell he's doing. This film's story, I also think, was extremely satisfying. It's a longer movie. It's almost 2 hours and a half long. I think it's 2 hours and 20 minutes long, but I never really felt the runtime. The pacing is really well done. It flies by. There's enough horror sequences mixed in with some really good character stuff, and it builds into an insane third act that I think some people might be mixed on, but I love the third act here. I feel like it was the perfect way to sort of finish this movie. It throws away your expectations. You assume with how the first movie ended, you kind of assume the second movie, well, this is probably the direction they're going to go. And they really make you think throughout the film, yeah, that's probably the direction we're going to go. But then they kind of pull the rug out from underneath you and do an ending that's like, oh my god, that is an even more obvious ending. How did I not realize that's what they were going to do? That is so brilliant and so smart. And I actually am very interested to see what he does with Smile 3. There is a clear sort of pathway to another story that will be very different and will be unpredictable, but a new concept within a concept that I just think is so smart. And wow, man, this movie, I can't believe how much I loved it. Smile 2 is one of the best movies of the year. I don't know if it's the best. You're going to have to stick around and subscribe and watch my end-of-year list, but it is one of the best horror movies I've seen in a very long time. This reminded me of an Ari Aster-style horror film, of a James Wan in his prime-style horror film, where you just watch a movie and you go, wow, this guy understands his craft. You have Naomi Scott giving one of the best performances of the year, and you're just amazed at how this genre, which can oftentimes be very gimmicky and simple and kind of a cash grab, that there are people that can come into this genre and elevate it to a level of being at the top of film and being some of the best filmmaking you will see in a year. Smile 2 is incredible. It's completely worth your time. I will give it a 5 out of 5. Yes, my god, it's like the 6th 5 I've given out this year, and one goes to Smile 2. Who would have thought? Go check out Smile 2, please. This is definitely one to go watch. So yeah, I've said my piece. I love this movie. Parker Finn, what a film. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like this video, subscribe for more notifications. I'll see you in the next one.